Homeless man was denied water at CSPA Rudy. He drank from a gourd and revealed he owned the land. The sun was like a red-hot iron plate pressing down on the Kibera slums at the edge of Nairobi. The air was thick with dust, the smell of burning trash, and the stench from open sewage ditches. A river that should have been flowing was now just a cracked riverbed, like the thirsty lips of the EARTH, split open, deep and bottomless. Right in the middle of that dried-up mud, an old man knelt. He was so skinny his dark skin clung to his bones, his ribs sticking out like weathered driftwood. His name was Kasulu. No one knew his exact age, maybe 60, maybe 80. His hair was a tangled mess of gray, his face red with wrinkles so deep they told stories of hunger, wandering, and of being forgotten. He clutched a gourd in his hands, shriveled, blackened, cracked all over, just like him. His trembling fingers dug into the dirt, nails packed with mud, fingertips bleeding into the EARTH. He wasn't looking for food, just water. Even a single drop of damp mud would do. Please mother EARTH, just one sip of water, he whispered, his voice rough like sandpaper. His lips were split, bleeding, his tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. Every swallow felt like a knife cutting his throat. He failed. The hole he dug held nothing but dry dirt. He slumped back, tilting his head up at the merciless sun, his eyes cloudy but still holding a stubborn flicker of light. He looked down at the gourd in his arms, gently running his fingers over its rough surface like it was his only family left. Old friend, are you thirsty too? He let out a bitter laugh. At the same time, on the other side of the city, a tall wrought iron gate slowly swung open. The sound of sirens faded as a line of luxury SUVs and Mercedes-Benz cars rolled in. This was one of Nairobi's most expensive private estates, owned by Emmayer Kusokwe, 32 years old, HR Road graduate, C of Future City Tech, Africa's so-called unicorn startup, hailed as the architect of Africa's digital age. Tonight, he was hosting the Africa Future Leaders Gala, a charity dinner for politicians, corporate executives, foreign diplomats, and media elites. The estate glowed under bright lights, fountains shimmering with LED colors, champagne towers sparkling under crystal chandeliers. Waiters moved through the crowd with silver trays of imported cheese, oysters, and African-inspired hors d'oeuvres. Emmayer stood on the terrace in a tailored suit, smiling confidently as he raised his glass. Tonight, we toast not just to charity, but to Africa's future. My SMART Eco-City project will rise from this land, green, intelligent, efficient. It will lift Africa out of poverty and onto the world stage. Applause erupted. No one noticed the frail figure crawling over a trash pile outside the estate's back fence, struggling to rd the light. Somehow, Kasulu had slipped past security. Maybe he'd found a blind spot. Maybe he still knew this land. He used to herd cattle here, back when the rivers ran clear, the trees were thick, and birds filled the sky. Yape read at a side door of the banquet hall, ragged and covered in dirt, wearing nothing but broken rubber sandals. Security rushed over and shoved him back. Get out of here, beg AR. This isn't your place. Kasulu didn't fight. He just lifted his tired eyes, holding up his gourd, and whispered in Swahili. Sir, just one sip of water, my gourd is empty, I won't last much longer. Guests turned to Stare. Some covered their noses. Some snapped pictures. Some laughed. Look, is this the kind of poverty we're supposed to fix? A woman in fur sneered. Disgusting. Then Emmayer stepped four-way road. He studied Kasulu, his lips curling into an amused smirk. Interesting, he said. Waving off security. Let him in. The room fell silent. Kasulu was led into the glittering hall like a thin deer stumbling into a den of lions. The chandelier's light hurt his eyes. The champagne fumes made him dizzy. Emmayer poured a glass of water and held it out. You want water, fine. But first, prove you deserve it. Kasulu froze. Tell me, who are you, where are you from, why do you think you have the right to be here? The crowd waited, eager to see the beggar humiliated. Kasulu was silent for a long time. His gaze swept over the gold-plated decor, the polished faces, then landed on Emmayer's name tag. Emmayer Kusokwe, see, Future City Tech. Suddenly, he smiled. Not with anger, but with deep exhaustion and pity. Then, instead of taking the water, he slowly raised his own cracked gourd to his lips and tilted his head back. Everyone watched, expecting him to lower it in shame. But in that moment, water began to flow from the Gourd.clar, pure, like mountain spring water, shimmering under the lights. Casala drank slowly, his throat moving with each grateful swallow. The room went dead silent. Americus' hand froze midair, his glass nearly slipping. This isn't possible, someone muttered. Casala finished, gently setting the gourd down, still half full. He looked around and spoke in a low, steady voice, "My name is Casalu. I come from Nguma village. 60 years ago, my ancestors farmed corn, herded cattle, and honored our dead on this land. These hills, this river, these trees, they remember me." He pointed out the window. Tawa RD the bulldozed EARTH where foundations were about to be laid. "What you're digging up isn't just dirt. It's my family's graves. This land was never yours, Mayorkusokoi. It belongs to my people. To the spirits of the EARTH. To those you call primitive, backway RD, in the way of progress. And this gourd," he ran his fingers over its cracked surface, "is proof of my ancestors' covenant with the land. It doesn't hold wealth. It doesn't hold power. It holds memory." People in the room began to tremble. Some looked down, unable to meet his eyes. Others secretly recorded the moment. Mayorkus' face turned red, then white, then gray. He snatched a microphone from the table, his voice shaking. "Security. Throw him out. This is slander. The ramblings of a madman." Casalu didn't resist. He let the Gua RDS drag him Tawa RD the exit. Just before the doors slammed shut, he turned, his gaze burning into Mayorkus. "You didn't just steal land. You stole water. Roots. The EARTS of people. And one day the EARTH will take it all back." The door thudded shut. Inside, music sta root again. People forced smiles, but the air had turned to ice. Mayorkus stood there, still holding that glass of water. He never took a sip. Outside, in the DRK, Casalu sat on a pile of trash, gently rocking his gourd. Under the moonlight, a single drop of water seeped from its mouth, falling into the cracked EARTH. And vanishing. Like a tear. Casalu was locked up in a temporary detention center on the outskirts of Nairobi. For concrete walls, a tiny BA red window, the air thick with sweat and piss. He curled up on a straw mat in the corner, still clutching that gourd to his chest. The Gua RDS had tried to take it from him at first, but when they got close, the gourd burned hot. SCA ring them off, muttering about witchcraft. No one interrogated him. Officially, he was charged with disturbing public order, but everyone knew the truth. He'd messed with Mayorkusokoi's empire. Meanwhile, in a rundown APA on the other side of the city, Amina Kato sta read at her computer screen, fingers flying across the Kiboe road. She was an investigative reporter for the East African Chronicle, in her EARLY 40s, short hair, Shah RPIs. For the past decade, she'd been digging into land grabs, forced evictions, and indigenous rights. The footage of Casalu at the gala had hit her like a bullet. Nguma village, that name, I've seen it somewhere. She scrolled through old files on her HA-RD drive, stopping at a 1963 colonial land registry. Nguma clan, 18 kilometers southwest of Nairobi. Land status, communal. Use, Fairmeng and ancestral rights. A few pages later, a note from 1965, temporary relocation due to national railway expansion. Land acquired. Compensation Uncle AR. Temporary. Amina scoffed. How many temporary displacements in Africa became permanent? She hit the archives, church records, oral histories, even reaching out to professors who studied African folklore. One elderly historian told her, the Nguma were an offshoot of the Kikuyu. They worshipped Nyanga, the EARTH mother. Their sacred object was a gourd said to hold the TRS of ancestors, water. That could save them in droughts. Amina's breath caught. She zoomed in on the gala footage. Casalu's gourd matched the one in old photos of Nguma priests. Mayorkus wasn't sitting idle either. His SMART City project was under fire from investors. A crazy old man is holding up $1 billion AR development, they demanded. His PR team scrambled to paint Casalu as a mentally unstable vagrant, hinting he might be a pawn of opposition groups. Mayorkus sent a private investigator to dig into Casalu's past. The man returned with a tattered cloth bag, confiscated when Casalu was arrested. Inside, a necklace of animal bone and seeds. Faded photos, people dancing in front of thatched huts, lush trees behind them. A handwritten Swahili poetry book, shaky but bold script. And a 1958 land deed copy, stamped by the British East African governor, Ngoma clan land. Permanent ownership. This can't be real. America shot up. That land was nationalized. We bought it from the government. But this deed, the investigator said quietly, was never legally revoked. Temporary reacquisition isn't the same as permanent seizure. Americas fell silent. Sta ring at the yellowed paper, he saw a version of himself. Had his family stayed in the countryside, had he been born in Nguma, would he be Kasulu? Find his relatives, Americas ordered. Pay them off. Make him disappear. But the investigator's next report was a shock. The Nguma descendants were scattered. Some died in famines, others in conflicts, some fled so far they'd erased their roots entirely. He's the last one, the investigator said. The final bloodline. America stood at his floor-to-ceiling window, watching the city lights. Suddenly, he remembered his father taking him to a place called Old Spring Village as a boy. The elders had said, water belongs to no one. It's given by the EARTH. Those who hoa RD it will have it taken back. Back then, he'd called it superstition, and now, the old man with the gourd was a mirror, reflecting the hollowness inside him. Outside the detention center, Dawn. Amina finally got visitation approval. She walked into the dim cell with a recorder and a bottle of water. Kasulu looked up, calm. You're here about the gourd. I want to know who you are, Amina said, sitting. You said you're from Nguma. What was it like? Kasulu was quiet for a moment, gazing at the sliver of sunlight through the bars. There was a river that sang. In the mornings, mist rolled over the fields like milk. We grew maize, beans, sweet potatoes. When the rains came, children ran barefoot in the mud, chasing frogs, laughing louder than birds. He stroked the gourd. This was my grandfather's. He said as long as Nguma remembers its roots, it will never run dry. And then in 1965, bulldozers came. The government said they needed the land for a railway temporary relocation. We mapped our graves, sacred trees, shrines, promised we'd return. But when we did, everything was gone. The land went to development companies. Our homes were rubble. The river buried. Your family. Kasulu's eyes dimmed. My father died protesting. My mother took me and my sister to Nairobi. My sister Sta the next year. My mother lost her mind, always screaming, give us back our water. Ista route wandering. He pulled the land deed from his bag, placing it in Amina's hands. The only thing my mother hid before she broke. For 60 years, I walked Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. Surviving on herbs, odd jobs. Waiting for someone who'd listen. Amina's eyes burned. Why now? Because that land is about to die, Kasulu said softly. Americas is building his SMART city over the last sacred spring. If I don't speak now, Nguma vanishes, even its memory. He looked straight at her. Reporter, will you be the one who remembers? Amina nodded. Ha road I swear. That night, Amina worked until sunrise. She wrote Kasulu's story, photos of the deed, archives, oral histories, under the headline, The Last Elder, a forgotten village and a legal land grab. Her editor refused to publish it, too risky. Americas has government ties. We can't touch this. Amina smirked and posted it on her personal social media. By morning, hashtag Nguma, hashtag waterback, hashtag Kasulu was trending across Africa. Young people read it, we have a history, they just made us forget. Fa Mayers commented, my village was taken too. I know his pain. Even anonymous employees from Americas's company leaked, we all knew the land was dirty. No one dared say it. The backlash spread like wildfire. Americas saw the hashtags in his office, his phone buzzing non-stop. The BOA RD demanded an emergency meeting, fix this. Now. Esta read at Kasulu's photo, the weathered face, those clear eyes. Then he stood, drove to the Detention center. Late that night, he stood outside Casalu's cell. If I let you go, will you stop this? He asked. Casalu shook his head. This isn't for me. It's for the ones who can't come back. Emearcus was silent a long time. Then, quietly, my father was a mayor. He always said, never forget where you came from. And you? Casalu asked. Did you forget? Emearcus had no answer. He turned and left, footsteps heavy. In the cell's corner, Casalu gently rocked the gourd. Moonlight through the bars glinted on its rim. Where a single drop of water formed, trembled, and fell. Emearcus left, but Casalu didn't sleep a wink that night. Moonlight spilled like silver silk across the cell floor. He set the gourd in the light and softly sang an old Nguma lullaby, the one his mother used to sing, about the Earth mother, Clea our springs, and the path home. Then something strange happened. The gourd's dry, cracked skin began to glisten under the moonlight. From its seams, a thin trickle of water seeped out, like sweat, like tears. Casalu held his breath, lifting it to his lips, and water flowed again. He drank. It was sweeter than any champagne, crisper than any mountain stream. He remembered his grandfather's words, when the moon sees truth, the gourd answers the land's call. At dawn, Amina arrived with new evidence. She dug through records all night and discovered that the Bahrain wasteland marked in Emearcus's SMART city plans was actually the site of Nguma's sacred spring. Colonial era maps labeled it Clea Rly, Ngoma Mwili, source of life. Clan ceremonial ground. They're not just burying land, Amina said. They're burying your faith. Casalu nodded. The spring is where our ancestors made their pact with the Earth. It never ran dry, not even in the worst droughts. But when people turn their backs on the land, the water remembers. Just then, shouts erupted outside. A worker in a Hivis vest was arguing with Kwa RDS, clutching a lab report. Amina recognized him, a water tester from the construction site. She rushed over. The man, shaking, handed her the report. We ran soil tests before digging. The groundwater 3 meters down, it's 30 times over the limit for heavy metals. But the weird thing is, he pulled up a video on his phone. Last night, I saw footage of Mr. Casalu drinking from that gourd. We tested the water, it's pure. Not a single contaminant. Not even bacteria. Amina's pulse spiked. She replayed the clip. Casalu in his cell, drinking, Clea Rs data, that's impossible, the lab tech said. How can two waters exist in the same ground? Stranger things kept happening. At Emearcus's site, a drill rig suddenly jammed. Mechanics found its bit tangled in thick roots, but the array had been filled with concrete years ago. Where did roots come from? 3 workers quit that night. Sui ring they RD drums and a woman singing underground. They hummed the tune, it matched Casalu's Nguma prayer song exactly. News spread. An ancient medicine man, Mogaru, traveled from western Kenya to sit outside the jail. At sunrise, he told reporters, you're not digging dirt. You're digging graves. That gourd isn't holding water, it's holding memory. He warned at Emearcus, stop now, or the EARTH will take back everything, your buildings will crack, your water will poison, your children will thirst. Emearcus laughed it off at first. Superstition. We have science. But that evening, his 5-year-old daughter collapsed with a fever after playing in their garden. Blood tests showed abnormal lead levels. Then their tap water tested positive for trace metals, water that should have been clean, straight from the city supply. Emearcus remembered the lab report, toxic groundwater at the site, yet Casalu's gourd water was pristine. Could it? He read out his window at the construction site. Could that gourd really be tied to something we don't understand? He flipped through his grandfather's journal. On one yellowed page, it read, what we take from the land, we must return. Or the water will remember. The trees will remember. Even the stones will remember. For the first time, Emearcus felt real fear, not of losing money, but of breaking something sacred. 3 days later, Casalu was released. Insufficient evidence, the officials said. He stepped into the sunlight, squinting. Amina waited outside, offering him a new water bottle. Casalu shook his head, raising the gourd. It needs the sun more than I do. Just then, the sky darkened. A freak midnight storm hit Nairobi. Sewage overflowed in the slums. Americus's site flooded, work halted. But where Kasala stood, raindrops hit the gourd and turned clear, flowing inside like it had its own rules. Amina filmed it. The video went viral. Millions read it. Comments flooded in. This isn't magic. It's the land speaking. We forgot water has a spirit. Kasalu isn't a beg. He's a keeper. And in the downpour, Americus stood alone at the edge of his construction site, sta ring at the mud, finally asking himself, where is this progress really taking us? Americus left, but Kasalu didn't sleep a wink that night. Moonlight spilled like silver silk across the cell floor. He set the gourd in the light and softly sang an old Nguma lullaby, the one his mother used to sing, about the Earth mother, Clea Springs, and the path home. Then something strange happened. The gourd's dry, cracked skin began to glisten under the moonlight. From its seams, a thin trickle of water seeped out, like sweat, like Trs. Kasalu held his breath, lifting it to his lips, and water flowed again. He drank. It was sweeter than any champagne, crisper than any mountain stream. He remembered his grandfather's words, when the moon sees truth, the gourd answers the land's call. At dawn, Amina arrived with new evidence. She dug through records all night and discovered that the Baren wasteland marked in Americus's SMART city plans was actually the site of Nguma's sacred spring. Colonial era maps labeled it Clea Rly, Ngoma Mwili, source of life. Plan ceremonial ground. They're not just burying land, Amina said. They're burying your faith. Kasalu nodded. The spring is where our ancestors made their pact with the Earth. It never ran dry, not even in the worst droughts. But when people turn their backs on the land, the water remembers. Just then, shouts erupted outside. A worker in a high-vis vest was arguing with Kwa RDS, clutching a lab report. Amina recognized him, a water tester from the construction site. She rushed over. The man, shaking, handed her the report. We ran soil tests before digging. The groundwater 3 meters down, it's 30 times over the limit for heavy metals. But the weird thing is, he pulled up a video on his phone. Last night, I saw footage of Mr. Kasalu drinking from that gourd. We tested the water, it's pure. Not a single contaminant. Not even bacteria. Amina's pulse spiked. She replayed the clip. Kasalu in his cell, drinking, Clea R's data, that's impossible, the lab tech said. How can two waters exist in the same ground? Stranger things kept happening. At Americus's site, a drill rig suddenly jammed. Mechanics found its bit tangled in thick roots, but the array had been filled with concrete years ago. Where did roots come from? 3 workers quit that night, swearing they'd heard drums and a woman singing underground. They hummed the tune, it matched Kasalu's Nguma prayer song exactly. News spread. An ancient medicine man, Mogaru, traveled from western Kenya to sit outside the jail. At sunrise, he told reporters, you're not digging dirt. You're digging graves. That gourd isn't holding water, it's holding memory. He warned at Americus, stop now, or the Earth will take back everything, your buildings will crack, your water will poison, your children will thirst. Americus laughed it off at first. Superstition. We have science. But that evening, his 5-year-old daughter collapsed with a fever after playing in their garden. Blood tests showed abnormal lead levels. Then their tap water tested positive for trace metals, water that should have been clean, straight from the city supply. Americus remembered the lab report, toxic groundwater at the site, yet Kasalu's gourd water was pristine. Could it esta read out his window at the construction site? Could that gourd really be tied to something we don't understand? He flipped through his grandfather's journal. On one yellowed page, it read, what we take from the land, we must return. Or the water will remember. The trees will remember. Even the stones will remember. For the first time, Americus felt real fear, not of losing money, but of breaking something sacred. 3 days later, Kasalu was released. Insufficient evidence, the officials said. He stepped into the sunlight, squinting. Amina waited outside, offering him a new water bottle. Kasalu shook his head, raising the gourd. It needs the sun more than I do. Just then, the sky darkened. A freak midnight storm hit Nairobi. Sewage overflowed in the slums. Mayorkas' site flooded, work halted. But where Kasulu stood, raindrops hit the gourd and turned clear, flowing inside like it had its own rules. Amina filmed it. The video went viral. Millions read it. Comments flooded in. This isn't magic. It's the land speaking. We forgot water has a spirit. Kasulu isn't a beg. He's a keeper. And in the downpour, Mayorkas stood alone at the edge of his construction site, sta ring at the mud, finally asking himself, where is this progress really taking us? News of Kasulu's release spread through Nairobi's streets like wildfire. Kids from the slums crowded around him, sta ring in awe at the magic gourd. One boy held out a chipped bowl, whispering, "Grandfather, can I have some water?" Kasulu smiled, the first light after a long drought. He tilted the gourd, and clear water flowed into the bowl. The boy took a sip, eyes widening. It's sweet. Cleaner than well water. Amina filmed it, posting with the caption, #water from the gourd, from land they try to erase. Within hours, it had 100k shares, but that single drop of water sent waves across Africa. 17-year-old Amina Bello crouched by her hut, filling a bucket with black sludge seeping from an oil pipeline. Her family had fished for generations, now the river was poison, fish gone, villagers covered in sores. We protested. Police shot at us, she said in a video reply to Amina's interview request. My father was hit. Now he lies in bed. They call this national progress, but we don't even have clean water. She held up a rusted tin cup. This is what we drink. Boiled, but still foul. When she heard Kasulu's story, TRS welled up. If he can stand up, so can I. We're not beggars. We're people who had our homes stolen. She uploaded a clip of herself on the cracked riverbank, shouting in Hausa, "We don't want oil. We want water. We want our land back." The hashtag give water back spread from Kenya to West Africa. David, a 70-year-old Khoisan elder, sat beside a toppled stone engraved with ancient rock art in antelope, dancing figures, ancestors under the stars. This was our sacred ground, he said, tracing the carvings. Here, we prayed for rain, honored the sun, passed down songs. Now he pointed to a luxury resort in the distance. They call it tourism development. Turned our holy mountain into a poolside bar. From a leather pouch, he spilled dried seeds. Rain grass, our ancestors used it to predict droughts. But the land is buried under concrete. Nothing grows anymore. When he heard of Kasulu's gourd, he wept. We had a sacred stone, it sang when the wind blew. 30 years ago, a museum preserved it. Never returned. Into the camera, he said, "Kasulu, do you hear us? We're all waiting for one clean drink? One sorry." Ali Muhammad led his last surviving camel to a Nearly dry well, 3 days walk from home. There used to be a dozen springs here, he said, gesturing to fenced-off fields. Now, foreign farms steal the water to grow roses for Europe. Our livestock die on the road. He knelt, digging until his fingers hit damp sand. Wrapping the mud in cloth, he squeezed a few muddy drops for the camel. The government calls this modern farming. But we can't even CK porridge anymore. He spat. They sell our water, pocket the cash, and say we're blocking progress. When he saw Kasulu's gourd, he drew its shape in the dust. If such a thing exists, if it could bring our water back, I'd walk 1,000 miles to see it. These voices flooded Amina's Africa Speaks project. In a blog post, she wrote, Kasulu isn't one man. He's a shadow cast by a million others. His gourd isn't magic. It's a symbol of every stolen river, every poison well. When a sea denied an old man water, he wasn't just refusing one person. He was refusing Africa's memory. Its dignity. The post spread in Swahili, Hausa, Zulu, read on WhatsApp, broadcast on radio, passed along at village firesides. Young people mobilized. Nairobi University students launched the One Gourd protest, marching to City Hall with jars of polluted water from their homes. We don't want handouts, their leader shouted. We want justice. In Lagos, fishermen circled Oil supply ships in canoes, waving Give Back the Niger banners. In Cape Town, Khoisan youth lit bonfires on bulldozed sacred sites, singing ancestral songs. Americus tried to fight back. At a press conference, he waved legal deeds and scientific plans, calling Kasalu a vagrant exploiting tribal sentiment. But as videos from Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia went viral, doubt crept in. The final blow: his 8-year-old daughter came home crying, "Dad, kids said you're bad. That you stole water. Is it true?" That night, he dug out old photos, his childhood village, his mother walking miles for water, his father saying, "Water's worth more than gold. Gold can't keep you alive." Now, he'd become the man who traded gold for water. Meanwhile, Kasala kept walking. With Amina's help, he visited displaced communities across Nairobi. At each stop, he poured gourd water for elders and children. One woman burst into tears after sipping it. "This tastes like the spring from my childhood. I thought I'd never know it again." Kasalu stroked the gourd. "The land remembers us. If we remember it." A boy asked, "Where does the water come from?" "A well, a river." God Kasala shook his head. "From memory. When you truly honor the land, it answers." The boy went home, cleaned an old clay pot, buried it in his yard, whispering daily, "Remember us. Remember us." 3 days later, drops of water seeped from the pot. Not enough to drink, but enough to spa RK hope. Soon, families everywhere were awakening. Old containers, gourds, jars, wooden buckets, not waiting for aid, but speaking to the land itself. At the eye of the storm, Amayarkus made a choice. He drove alone to the Nguma ruins, the empty land slated for his skyscrapers. Weeds choked broken stone foundations. Kneeling, he clawed at the dirt and uncovered a thick web of roots beneath, clinging to the soil like a lifeline. He recalled the geological report: this aquifer was once abundant. Now degraded by concrete. Standing, he watched smoke rise from distant slum fires and finally understood that this was never BAREN. It was only forgotten. Cut apart, renamed real estate. But to Kasalu it was home. Roots. Life. He deleted the PR statement on his phone. Then called Amina. "I need to see Kasalu," he said, voice rough but steady. "There are things I have to ask." Wind swept the field, rustling grass like a whisper from the EARTH. And miles away, under the same moon, Kasala rocked his gourd gently. A single drop formed, fell, soaked into the soil, like a seed, waking at last. When Amina relayed Amayarkus's request to meet, Kasalu just rocked his gourd in silence. Moonlight rippled on the water inside, reflecting in his deep-set eyes. "He wants to see me," Kasalu asked softly. "He says he wants the truth," Amina said. "Maybe he's rooting to change." Kasala shook his head. "Power doesn't kneel so easily. He doesn't want forgiveness, he wants control." Sure enough, the government struck the next day. Nairobi City Hall issued a statement: Kasalu was inciting ethnic tensions and disrupting public order with superstitious acts. Police summoned him for questioning over illegal gatherings. Amina was furious. "This is retaliation. All he did was shari water." Water, an old cop muttered to her. "In this city, whoever controls water controls life. You think they're SCA red of an old man? They're SCA red of everyone running to draw water from the land like he does." Days later, Kasalu Ape read at a water return gathering organized by villagers on the edge of Nguma's ruins. 100 displaced FARMers, slum dwellers, and students sat in a circle. He stood on a broken stone slab, gourd glinting in the sun. "You ask where this water comes from?" His voice carried despite its quietness. "Not from pipes. Not from wells. From the heart." He buried the gourd in the soil. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Whispers rose. Then Kasala closed his eyes and sang the Nguma water chant, ancient, mournful, like wind through a valley. Suddenly, the gourd's mouth dampened. One drop. Then another. Within half an hour, it was full. The crowd erupted. Children lined up with cups, bottles, bowls. Amina filmed every face, TRS and elders' eyes, kids laughing, young men and women steeled with resolve. Then sirens wailed. Cops stormed in, shoving people aside. "You're under arrest for illegal assembly and spreading superstition," an officer Ba Urquette at Kasalu. He didn't resist. Gently, he pulled the gourd from the EARTH and handed it to Amina. Keep it safe. Grandfather Kasalu, children cried, held back by police. Amina raised her phone. The whole continent is watching. Watch all you want, the officer sneered. The law is here. Kasalu was shoved into a squad car, back bent but spine straight. This cell was worse, no window, just a flickering bulb overhead. No visitors allowed. The crackdown spread. State media stayed silent. Troll accounts flooded social media. Kasalu's a foreign agent, the gourd's a fake, it's a political stunt. Americus's company issued a statement backing the government's lawful actions and vowing to accelerate the SMART city project to meet development needs. But underground, resistance simmered. Kasalu curled on a thin mat, throat parched, not from thirst, but soul-deep drought. Without the gourd, he felt hollow. From the next cell, a cough. Then a raspy voice in Swahili, "Hey, old man. They say you make water from dirt." Kasalu managed a weak smile. That's the land's mercy. A pause. Then, I'm Mwada. In 1952, I knew someone like you. Kasalu opened his eyes. I was a boy in Kiambu. The British came for a railway. Bulldozed our homes. An elder stood in front with a gourd, said, "You can knock down houses, but not memory." What happened? They arrested him. 3 days later, he died in custody. He RT attack, they said. Mwada snorted. We knew they beat him to death. A heavier silence. That night, every well in the village dried up. For a year, we drank mud. Kasalu's chest tightened. So you see, Mwada whispered. They don't fear are you drinking. They fear are everyone remembering who they are. Kasalu lay still. He wasn't the first to stand for the land. 60 years ago, that unnamed elder had faced the same power, holding the same truth. If he fell now, Nguma's memory would vanish forever. Outside, Amina fought back. She cut the gathering footage into a 3-minute clip. Why is the government afraid of 100 people? Showering water bypassing censors. She spread it via WhatsApp, Telegram, Village Radio. Crucially, she reached Human Rights Watch's Africa desk. A response came fast. We've tracked similar cases across the continent: land grabs, water monopolies, indigenous suppression. This fits the neo-colonial development pattern. We're intervening. Domestic pressure mounted too. Professors, clergy, even retired judges spoke up. A bishop preached, Christ told the Samaritan woman, whoever drinks this water will thirst again. But the water I give will become a spring welling up to eternal life. Kasalu's water may not be miraculous, but it is just. The tide began to turn. Alone in the DRK, he read at his daughter's drawing, an old man with a gourd, children drinking, labeled Dad, let's be good. His phone buzzed, the BOA RD chairman. Americus, break ground next week or investors pull out. But Kasalu, a damn vagrant. The government has him. This'll blow over. You're a C, not a saint. The call ended. Americus stood at his window. The city glittered, but he knew millions fought for a single clean sip. He pulled up the SMART city 3D modeled glass towers, SMART grids, manicured lawns. A flawless future. But in that future, there were no poor. No elders. No memories. No gourds. His stomach turned. His mother's voice echoed, son, if you ever have money, never deny a beg or water. It's not charity. It's paying a debt. Now he was the one stealing water. Kasalu dreamed. In Guma village, alive again. A clear river. Children running. His grandfather by the sacred spring, handing him the gourd. Water is alive. It knows who betrays the land. It knows who Gua RDS memory. He woke sweating. Footsteps outside. Not Gua RDS, a man in plain clothes, holding papers. Mr. Kasalu, he said quietly. I'm with Human Rights. We secured an emergency hearing. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. You'll speak in court. Kasalu took the papers, hands trembling. This wasn't just a hearing. It was a trial for the land. The water. Who decides Africa's future? Will they let me bring the gourd? The lawyer nodded. If you prove it's not a weapon. Kasulu smiled. Through the bars, the first light of morning crept in. A new day was coming. By 6 a.m., hundreds had gathered outside Nairobi's courthouse, students in uniforms, FARMers in headscarves, workers in straw hats, elders leaning on canes. Their handmade signs read, "Water back to the people, the land remembers us, Kasulu is not a criminal." Amina stood at the front, live streaming the hearing. She'd worked all night compiling evidence, the land deed, colonial records, water test results, villager testimonies, and the footage of the gourd drawing water. Today, she said into the camera, it's not Kasulu on trial. It's our conscience. At 9:50 a.m., a police CAR rolled in through the back gate. Kasulu, frail but straight-backed in his tattered robe, was hustled inside as the crowd murmured and clapped. 10 a.m. Court in session. The room was packed. Reporters, academics, human rights observers. America sat across from the defense, jaw tight. He hadn't needed to come, but here he was. Presiding was Judge Ngozi Wamwe, known for fairness. She banged her gavel. The prosecution went first. Kasulu Nguma stands accused of inciting ethnic division, illegal assembly, and using superstition to incite panic, the prosecutor Dekle read. His so-called magic gourd is likely a fraud, pre-filled water or chemical tricks to manipulate the public and obstruct national development. He demanded punishment to uphold social order. Silence. Then the defense lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client isn't a criminal. He's a guardian of land rights. Everything he's done is to awaken forgotten history and justice. He presented Exhibit 1, the 1958 land deed, stamped by the British governor, granting permanent ownership to the Nguma clan. Is this document authentic? The lawyer asked. The prosecutor gritted his teeth. Its authenticity isn't disputed. Then by what right did the government sell communal land to private corporations without due process or fair compensation? This involves historical complexities. No, the lawyer cut in. This isn't complex. It's ongoing theft. The 1965 tempora reacquisition was never legally completed. America Sokoi's legal purchase is built on stolen ground. Gasps filled the room. America STA read at his hands. Next, the defense called Amina Kato. She took the stand, playing footage of the gathering, Kasulu burying the gourd, water seeping up, the line of people drinking. I witnessed it, she said. No hidden pipes. No containers. Lab tests confirmed the water was pure, while local groundwater is toxic. It defies science, but it happened. It symbolizes what millions of displaced people crave: water and dignity. The prosecutor sneered, a REU funded by foreign agitators. Amina laughed coldly. I serve the truth. If that's a crime, convict me. The third witness stunned the room, Mogaru, the old medicine man. Cloaked in traditional garb, gripping a Ayurveda staff, he spoke slowly, I'm no witch. I'm a keeper of memory. In Africa, land isn't property. It's ancestors' bones, mothers' blood, children's futures. He told the Nguma legend how the gourd held the EARTH's TRS, awakening only for those who honored the land. You dig with machines, steal with contracts, but don't understand, the land remembers. Betray it, and it takes back water, harvests, peace. He locked eyes with Americus. Young man, your towers will crumble if their roots don't touch the soil. Judge Wamwe, unusually, didn't interrupt. The court sat in silence. Then, the defense's bold request, Your Honor, we ask for a live demonstration. Let Kasulu prove the gourd's power in the courthouse. Garden. Upro AR. The prosecutor yelled, this is a circus. Act. After deliberation, Judge Wamwe ruled, if safety is ensured, the test may proceed. Results won't dictate verdicts but may inform understanding. Cameras zoomed in as Kasulu, in a clean white robe, buried the gourd in BA soil. Give it 3 days, he said. Water needs patience. For 72 hours, the nation watched. Live feed showed nothing. Then on day 2, the gourd's surface dampened. At dawn on day 3, a reporter shouted, it's working. Clear water trickled from the gourd's mouth. Independent tests confirmed, pure, mineral-rich, chemically distinct from local groundwater. This defies hydrology, a geologist admitted. Unless it's drawing from some deep, unmapped memory in the land itself. The defense submitted the report, "Science can't explain how, but what is undeniable. Kasalu's gourd draws clean water from poison EARTH. Meanwhile, Mayorkas's SMART city would pave over this self-healing land." He turned to Mayorkas. "Tell me, sir, is your technology SMA rooter than this gourd?" Mayorkas had no answer. Judge Wamwi rose, solemn. "This case touches on history and cultural rights. While land ownership isn't decided here today, I rule," she gla read at the prosecutor. "Suppressing memory in the name of order, seizing roots in the name of progress, violates Kenya's constitution and African values." Her verdict, Kasalu Nguma is acquitted of all charges. Riga writing land claims, an independent commission will review Nguma's historical rights. Cheers erupted. Kasalu wept, not looking at Mayorkas but at the garden outside, where sunlight glowed on the patch of EARTH that had yielded water, as if the land itself was smiling. That night, Amina blogged today, "We didn't win back the land. But we won the right to speak. The gourd's water isn't magic. It's truth, long buried, finally rising. When it flowed, what was pa-urged wasn't just soil, it was our souls." Alone in his office, Mayorkas watched news clips of Kasalu's release. He opened a drawer, pulled out the SMART city blueprints, and set them on fire. In the flames, he imagined a city without walls. Land that breathes freedom, and an old man, holding a gourd, smiling under the moon. Flames licked at the blueprints of the SMART city, curling them into blackened butterflies of ash. Mayorkas Okoye sat at his desk, watching the last corner of the plan vanish into smoke. He didn't call for help. Didn't try to stop it. This fire wasn't just burning paper, it was burning the logic of progress he'd believed in for 10 years. He stood, stripped off his tailored suit, and pulled on a simple cotton shirt and worn work pants. Grabbing his keys, he told his assistant only, "Cancel my meetings. I have something to find." He drove straight to the ruins of Nguma. Morning sun spilled over the overgrown land. Bulldozers stood frozen, the site abandoned since the hearing. Mayorkas walked alone through rubble and severed roots, his boots crunching on soil smothered under concrete like a wound that wouldn't heal. He found the spot where Kasalu had buried the gourd. Amina's team had marked it with a small flag, "Sacred Spring Site, pending survey." Kneeling, he dug into the dirt with his hands. The deeper he went, the softer it became, damp, almost. He remembered the geological report. This was once an aquifer junction, but decades of paving had severed the veins. Water wasn't meant to be trapped in pipes, a voice said behind him. Mayorkas turned. Kasalu stood there, just released, still weary but clear-eyed. The gourd was back in his hands. It returned, Kasalu said, stroking it. The land remembers those who keep their word. Mayorkas hesitated. "Do you hate me?" Kasalu chuckled. "I hate forgetting. You just walked too fast without looking back." He pointed to a flattened Mount Nearby. There. My family's graves. Every rainy season, we'd bring corn and water as offerings. Now the bones are remixed into cement, holding up someone else's future. Mayorkas's chest tightened. The future he'd been building stood on erased pasts. That afternoon, Mayorkas went undercover. Dressed plainly, recording discreetly, he visited displaced villagers under the guise of social research. In a tin-roof shack, an old farmer named Karu offered him a bowl of murky water. "This is what we drink. The government says piped water, but it's drawn from wells are your construction site. Heavy metals. Still stinks after boiling." He gestured to his coughing grandson. "Doctor says lead poisoning. But we can't afford to leave." A woman named Nana wiped 5 of us crammed in this room. In Nguma, we had land, trees, a home. Now we're urban poor, erased from the map. Mayorkas's pen didn't move,
but his hands shook. He'd thought development meant towers, internet, revenue.
Now he saw, if it stole homes and health, it was just theft in a suit. Back at his office, he pulled up the SMART city stats, projected profit, $1.20 billion, jobs created, 800, high-skilled, water demand, 5,000 tons/day, city supply, then he checked in Guma's records, original families, 327 fa land, 180 hectare sacred spring output, 80,000 tons/year, self-filtering, a bitter laugh escaped him. I traded 327 roots for 800 jobs. I built SMART pipes while killing a natural spring. I called myself a leader, but couldn't give clean water to a child. He googled African traditional ecology Zulu rainature vesting. 2a reg underground wells. Banta forest spring rituals. We had the answers all along, he whispered. We just called them Backway Road. That night, he went to the prison. He requested one visitor, Mwada, the elder who'd spoken to Kasalu in detention. The Gwa RDS hesitated but allowed it. They faced each other in the cold visitation room. You're not here about your project, Mwada said dryly. If you could do it over, Amayurkas asked, what would you change? Mwada studied him. You think you're the first rich man with regrets. 30 years ago, a sea came to me. Said he'd return the land. Next day, he was reassigned. Project went on. He leaned closer. Realizing the truth is easy. Fighting the system, that's the wa-r. Amayurkas exhaled. But if I don't try, I'm just a thief. Mwada suddenly grinned. A thief? You're better. At least you came to ask. A week later, Amayurkas shocked the world. He suspended the SMART city indefinitely and launched a fund to investigate Nguma's land claims. The Boa RD erupted. You're betraying Shari holders, the chairman ROA read. Sumi, Amayurkas said calmly. I won't build a city on graves. At a private staff meeting, he played the villagers' interviews. One engineer removed his glasses, wiping his eyes. My mother was displaced. I never told anyone. The room's energy shifted. Meanwhile, Kasalu wasn't waiting. With Amina's help, he led villagers back to the ruins, clearing weeds, marking grave sites. Kids built a simple altar with stones, offering flowers and water. Then, when Kasalu reburied the gourd at the spring CRT, something miraculous happened. 3 days later, a trickle of water emerged. Not a full spring, but after 60 dry years, the land was waking up. Ecologists rushed to test it. Soil microbes had surged. Like ecological memory, they marveled. News spread. Displaced tribes sent envoys to Leah RN. An African Roots Alliance began forming. Amayurkas returned to the site, carrying a solar-powered water harvester. My company made this, he said. It pulls moisture from air, enough for 50 people. A gift. Kasalu eyed the machine. It needs power. Maintenance. KARTS. Our gourd just needs memory. Amayurkas nodded. True. But maybe it's a bridge, between old ways and new. Kasalu thought, then extended his hand. All right. But villagers control it. No contracts. No monopoly. Deal. Amayurkas gripped his hand. One hand young and strong, the other GNA led with age, locked together under the sun. And in that moment, the EARTH seemed to tremble. Somewhere NEARBYA long dry well sweated its first drop. The moment Amayurkas and Kasalu shook hands, Amina's camera captured it forever. The photo went viral. 2 hands, 1 land, becoming Africa's most read image of the year. 3 days later, Amayurkas held a press conference. No champagne, no PowerPoint, just an old, yellowed map spread across the table. I used to think development meant skyscrapers, fiber optics, foreign investment, he said, voice steady but quiet. I was wrong. Real development is letting people live with dignity. He announced 3 decisions. Cancel that SMART city permanently. The land would be returned to Nguma descendants. Launch the Gourd Ecology Fund, $5 million for restoring the sacred spring, building sustainable FARMS, and supporting self-governance. All future city tech projects must pass traditional wisdom review. No more violating indigenous rights. The room erupted. Did the Boa RD approve this? What about Shari holders? Reporters shouted. Amayurkas smiled grimly.
They're suing me.
But some things matter more than stock prices. Then he unpinned his C badge, set it down, and walked out. The government resisted at first.
Officials claimed state land can't be reversed.
But as #Return Guma trended across Africa and global media picked up the story, even the president's office caved. A special committee will review historical land claims. 3 months later, the verdict came, and Nguma's land was never legally seized.
Their rights must be honored.
Days before the 2025 rainy season, 180 hectares residential were officially returned to Kasalu and his people. The ceremony wasn't flashy, no red ciarupettes, no politicians. Just villagers, Shole-Rs, and allies gathered at the sacred springs ruins. Kasalu, draped in traditional white robes, buried his gourd in the soil while chanting softly. An hour later, water bubbled up, forming a small pool. Children squealed, splashing their faces. Elders knelt, weeping into their hands. Kasalu lifted the now full gourd high.
This water doesn't belong to me. Not to any one person. It belongs to memory. To the EARTH.
To everyone who remembers where they came from. He poured the first cup into the soil, for the ancestors. The second to the sky, for nature. The third, he handed to Mayorkas, for those who wake up.
Mayorkas drank.
The taste, clean, sweet, flooded him with childhood memories of village wells. The Gourd Ecology Alliance launched immediately. Solar-powered water stations, run by villagers themselves. Ren fields replanted with traditional corn, beans, and healing herbs. A story hut where elders teach Nguma songs to kids. Though no longer see, Mayorkas stayed involved as an advisor, bringing tech, but insisting villagers lead. Tech serves.
We're not here to save you, he told them. We're here to Leah RN. Kasalu sat alone by the water. Amina joined him.
Did you ever hate them? She asked softly. The ones who took everything. The old man gazed at the stars. Hate is poison. It dries up the heart. I just wish no one else would wander 60 years, begging for a sip of their own water. Somewhere nearby, the newborn spring tinkled like laughter. A whisper from the EARTH. A song of homecoming. 3 years pass like a seasonal stream over Nguma's land. Where bulldozers once cars, green maize fields and bean mines now thrived. Solar-powered water stations hummed quietly, supplying clean water to the village, while the sacred spring, revived, bubbled steadily, drawing back frogs and dragonflies long absent. Kasalu never crowned himself king. He refused a new house, still living in his thatched hut. The villagers called him Waterkeeper. Every dawn, he led children to the spring, teaching them healing herbs, ancestral chants, and how the land once spoke to their people. Water listens, he often told them. Treat it with your heart, and it will never leave you.
Mayorkas returned every rainy season.
No more suits, just work pants and calloused hands as a tech apprentice. He showed villagers how to maintain equipment but always said, "You're the teachers.
You taught me what SMART really means." Amina's Voices of Africa project had now documented 47 displaced tribes.
Her book, The King in the Gourd, was taught in schools across the continent. Its dedication read, "For all forgotten roots." One evening, children drew pictures in the new open-air schoolhouse. A boy sketched a green field with a gourd spouting water at its center, a smiling sun above. What's this? The teacher asked. The new kingdom, the boy said. No walls. No bulldozers. Just water, trees, and singing elders. By the spring, Kasalu rocked his gourd gently. Moonlight spilled over its rim, water shimmering with reflected stars. He knew kingdoms weren't measured in acres, but in ERTS. As long as memory lives, the roots never die.
5 years on, Nguma had become a symbol of Africa's ecological revival.
Delegations from Nigeria, Ghana, Rwanda came to study its model, tradition and modernity, living side by side. The sacred spring was now called the Source of Memory, and a replica of Kasalu's gourd sat in the Museum of African Civilizations, labeled simply, a vessel of dignity. Kasalu was over 90 now, walking slowly but still patrolling the fields. Each day, teaching children to draw water, name herbs, sing the old songs. I won't live long, he'd say, but the water will keep flowing. At a youth development forum, he was invited to speak. The room was packed. Young entrepreneurs, students, officials from across the continent. One asked, "You wandered all your life, then reclaimed your land. What's the one thing you want us to know?" Casselu paused, then pulled the weathered gourd from his cloth bag. Cracked but clean, just as it had always been. "I never took back anything," he said softly. "The land was always here. We just forgot to return." He scanned the room. "You ask if I hate? I only hate forgetting. When a child doesn't know their grandparents' names, when land is called wasteland, when water must be begged for, that's the deepest poverty." He lifted the gourd. "This isn't magic. It's a reminder. Water has memory. Land has a soul. People have roots. Every one of you. Rise a gourd inside. Maybe it's a song. A seed. A saying from your ancestors. Don't let it run dry." The room stayed silent. Many wiped their eyes. After the forum, children ran through the sunset, passing handmade gourds, clay pots, wooden cups filled with Nguma's water, laughing as they saw red. The camera pulled back. Across Africa's vastness, village smoke curled into twilight. Spring's float songs rose like the Earth's unending breath.